Everyone can hear us? Yeah, you hear us?
Badass. That should be the thing.
I can hear you.
Mute us for a second. Great. Everybody that wants to. You're gonna mute us because I think.
It's kind of like that at the end there too.
If there's room for others, I can just sit outside. We can even through.
Nobody's sitting there, I'm trying to keep it light.
I'm not literally under the fire chief here. Mary?
I'm 30. So if nobody else comes, we're good.
I believe that's 29.
I'm already here, it's not coming. Next two days for me are the sacrifices. No, underneath, we don't have our, the next year's. Put some perfume.
I will let you know against that. Yes. Do you know what we should talk? So. It's actually. Okay, very good.
Right?
I even put it in every.
For my kids, or when they were in school, sweatshirts. They were discussing their name on it. Last
Yeah,
one,
side conversation.
it's just come and do this.
All right.
I love that. I like where my son's.
Sure. I'm gonna double check the list. Building committee attendees, see if we've got quorum there.
For RCTV. Yeah. They're good.
We're good, Joe. Still pretty fine. Okay, good.
That's very good. The ability to pivot, it's ready.
Thank you for your patience, everybody. Sorry about the technical issues.
Yeah. Thank you.
Perfect. And you want to take one last look at the list of guests to see if you've got a quorum.
No.
All right,
Just
okay.
the three of us.
Sounds good. We figured out which committees need to call to order, so let's start doing that. Only 36 minutes late. I'd like to call the finance committee to order. I believe, let's see, we do have one remote participant, so I will do a roll call vote. Emily, I hope you're prepared to unmute. Emily Sisson?
Present, there we go.
Oh.
All right, let me see if I can find everyone in the room here. Joe McDonough.
Here.
John Sullivan here. Henry Kume.
Yeah.
Mark Zero. Jeffrey Corum. Diane Downing.
Here.
I didn't miss anyone as I went around, did I? Joe Kernan here. No, I'm, you know. All right, Carla, would you like to call the select board to order?
Yeah, I'd like to call the select board to order. I know some of us are on Zoom, some of us are in person, so Mark,
Here.
Karen,
Here.
Chris,
Here.
Melissa,
There.
and Carlo here. Thank you and hope you have a good meeting.
Thank you. So, let me go find the agenda, which hasn't been updated in the last 38 minutes, despite two updates today. All right, so welcome everyone to our second financial forum. Our first financial forum was sort of preparation for giving guidance on the operating budget, and centered on topics like free cash. This one is focused on our big projects, the Killen School Building project, and we're going to also get an update on the recal project. We do have a couple other sort of more mundane finance committee business. We have to revote one or more town meeting warrant articles before town meeting. And that was not reasonably anticipated, I'm afraid, but I understand that we are allowed to talk about it tonight. And then, yes, we'll do our usual talk about future agendas and approve minutes. So with that, I think I can hand it over to Carla.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. I'm Carla Nazaro. I am the chair of the Killen School Building Committee. And we thank you for allowing us to make a presentation tonight. Next slide, Jackie. Thank you. So these are schematic design milestones. I want to have you look at the top row. That represents weeks. It does not represent days, just so you know. So this is a little bit of insight into the life of our designer. You can see that every single circle or square represents a meeting. Our most exciting element on here is MSBA meeting. There was an MSBA board meeting this morning at 10. They unanimously approved for Killam to move from module 3, which was feasibility study, into schematic design, which is module 4. So there are 8 modules in total. So we were really excited about that. We have been working on schematic design, even though we haven't gotten approval on it because just of how the MSBA meetings fall. So we were really excited about that. And right now, some of the things that the designer and us are working on is security. And we've had meetings on that and we'll continue to, and instructional technology, which those meetings are coming up, I think this weekend and next week. Next slide, Jackie. This is, as many of you have seen multiple times, a proposed timeline. You can see that we had an FAS, or Facilities Assessment Subcommittee meeting where we did a presentation. Dr. Milichewski and I and our designer did a presentation for the MSBA. They wanted to make sure that our facilities mimics what our educational plan or visioning is. They were really happy with the presentation that we did. And it really represents how our teachers want to teach and the best way for our students to learn. So we are in the middle of schematic design right now. We are going to be going to town meeting in the spring, and we're going to be having a debt exclusion vote in the spring as well. We are still finalizing those numbers, and we will have more exact dates for that coming up shortly. Next slide, Jackie, and next. So we had a community meeting last week, and we have we had a community meeting last week on site and community use. And next week, we will actually have another community meeting on traffic patterns. So this is a proposed and ever-changing site plan. At the moment, you can see the first floor of our existing building. If you can see this line here, the dotted line, it shows our existing building now. So obviously the idea is to keep the kids in school, build a new building next door, and then once we move the students and staff in, we'll demolish the existing building. We have a nice traffic pattern going through there, special access for fire department, emergency vehicles if needed. This, you'll see the WOW Center. That is the World of Wonder Center. It's very unique to Killam. We, on our wish list and on Recreation Committee's wish list is a U12 soccer field. And you can see the different play areas and the patio. Jackie, if you, next one, please. This is so ever-changing that you can see the softball field and the U12 field. Just last week in our executive leadership team meeting, we were discussing that there is an existing softball field at Killam and we wanted to maintain it. So the designer put it back in. We're moving the WOW Center. At our community meeting last week, there was even discussion on making that field turf. So that was part of the discussion. If that's a turf field, could we make that softball field on top of the the soccer field and have that as turf as well, and potentially put like a basketball hoop there. So it's, our designers are so flexible and they listen to what we say, and they're just, it's like ever changing. So this is where we are right now. But we'll keep you posted. Next slide, please. This is an example, the landscape designer was there at the meeting as well, and this is an example of different options for play, for the different levels of play. And we had a butters there, which was really, and the neighbors, which was really good because we listened to what their concerns were. They're concerned about their views. They're concerned about traffic. They're concerned about construction sequencing and things like that. And trees, right? We talked about what kind of trees and shrubs will be put on the site. And we will be having our abutters meeting with landscapers too, just because we always want to be hearing what people's desires are for the project. Next slide, Jack. This is our first floor and our second floor, not our third floor, and it's a partial third floor. So part of this is in the green on the first floor is our RISE preschool program. We currently have RISE at 3 locations, at Killam, at Wood End, and at the high school. The committee has voted to bring RISE all to one location. And I'll talk about funding of that shortly as well. And then we have this donut shape, which I'm going to talk about later on. We refer to this area here of different classrooms as like a donut shape. On the third floor, there's another donut there as well. But over our cafeteria, it's only 2 floors. It's not going up 3 floors. And I will show you another picture to help with that visual as well. Next slide, Jack. So this is our first ever 3D view of what a site perspective would look like. And with the houses around it. And the next slide, Jackie. So this is, we did have, so part of, as I mentioned, part of the, this part of the building here is 3 floors. This part is 3 floors, and under the cafeteria is only 2 floors. There's a lot of access for light coming into the building. We are really pleased with our designer and how they're able to make the building not look as enormous as it is. I will be the first to admit that out of the gate in my head, I said, we are not doing a 3-story school. And other people have said that. And this is, in the committee's belief and my belief, this is the best option that we have. The nice thing about this is the designers know how to use these warm, durable materials to make your eye go to different places so it doesn't look like a huge school. We went to visit multiple schools. We went to 2 in Watertown that were 3 stories. And we looked at them, we said, wow, it doesn't feel like it's a huge, massive school. So we felt really good about that. And they also jogged the building in, so your eye kind of goes to different areas. And that, along with fencing, along with trees and landscape, it's going to be beautiful. But this isn't exactly how it's going to look. This was our first rendering of it. Next slide, please. And then funding. So the MSBA requires that we look at different options. They require that we look at just a code upgrade, so keeping the existing building, but just upgrading it. And that comes with a cost. The next option is to do a renovation addition. So we take the existing building, we upgrade it, we do a renovation. There's a cost associated with that. There were two other options. Option B1 is what the committee chose. That was our donut option, how we had the classrooms kind of in a donut shape. The other new building option, the new construction option was a wing. Some of us called it the cruller. It was more of a elongated classroom space, but truly it wasn't any longer than our donut option, but everybody felt comfortable with that. That cost, 135 million, is an estimated cost, is not a final cost, because we're not through design yet. Next slide, please. Okay, so we had a huge submission to the MSBA, the PSR, the Preferred Schematic Report. The MSBA told us what they would participate in and what they wouldn't participate at this moment. So some of the things that they will participate in is for grades 1 through 5, 20 classrooms, specialist offices, MLL, which are our multi-language learner classroom space. The designers were really excited that MSBA is participating in adaptive PE, because that was a new one for them. So we were really excited about that. And we were really excited about the RISE preschool classrooms being included. So 12 RISE preschool classrooms are included. That was something that we did not anticipate at the beginning, because it was part of our statement of intent. The MSBA felt like it was part of our program. So that was like a huge win for us. As I had mentioned before, this project isn't just about Killam, it's about the whole town. So by freeing up the space from RISE, from Wood End, we'll free up classroom space there. It will free up space at the high school, which we're really excited about because of our innovation pathways. We have a lot of really exciting things in the past 4 years going on at our high school. I'll just tell you, we got a $100,000 grant for a virtual autopsy table. Now, these are at like Harvard University. These aren't in elementary schools or in high schools. So that's something that's new to us this year. And just to have all of these different pathways for our students is such an unbelievable opportunity. So this additional space, or this extra space carved out, really helps, and that will benefit the entire town. What they are not going to participate in. So we decided to increase our gym space by 1,150 square feet. That is to make our basketball space, basketball court larger, so we have additional places for students to play. Larger staff room, we have a larger conference room. The non-classroom RISE space is not included, so we have some larger spaces in PT and OT, and a teacher's room for RISE that is not included, and that's almost 6,000 square feet. And then we have an office with storage for extended day that's not included as well. Next, thank you. And then what they're partially funded. So this is an interesting one. We have something that we call flex areas. We have classroom space, and one thing that when we went to visit these new schools, and almost a different way in education is to have what we call front porches, where if you take this example, this would be the classroom, but then there's a front porch where we've taken room from the classroom, extended it into the hallway. So teachers can actually have classroom space out there that is visible to them, that there can be small group things going on with other adults. Some of that space is not funded by the MSBA because it goes into the hallways. So we have nice larger hallways, but some of that is covered and some of it is not, which is kind of expected from us. I will tell you that we were, and I forgot to tell you in the other one, we were really successful in, and I forgot to tell you about the space that we did, they did pay for. The MSBA paid for a science and engineering space for us, which they weren't going to. We kind of pushed back with them a little bit. So they are paying for that space, participating in that space. This is something that we have also kind of pushed back, gently pushed back on them and say, hey, this is really important to us, this space. So we wrote something up, so we're waiting to hear back from them as well. So we really feel good about like how they've been listening to us and just really understanding what our intentions are. And I have to say that this program with MSBA is just unbelievable. You never think you're going to be able to get to a certain point and everything kind of falls into place and you get. Next slide, Jack. Upcoming or next steps is we will be making a huge decision at our November 20th building committee meeting on the HVAC system, which a ton of time and energy has gone into that with our working groups and with our committee. We'll be getting more specific funding for that, more specific outline of costs for that too, which will help us make our decision. We will have a design update on December 2nd. And like I said, November 4th, we're doing a traffic community meeting right across the hall, hopefully. I'm going to throw out another, and not pretend number, but MSBA reimbursement. They are currently reimbursing us, let's just say it's about 51% of eligible space. That's the percentage they're going to pay up to participate in. So that comes out to about $38.5 million of funding that comes from the MSBA. I will say that when we vote on it, if the vote does not pass, we are considered out of the program. We do have the opportunity to approach them again and say, we want to have another vote, like in a short amount of time. We cannot change the design. Once the design is set, that is the design. We have one more shot. If that fails, we are literally kicked out of the program. So we will have a school that needs attention and it will be 100% on our dime. So those are the facts. Any questions?
You can go. Mary Ann was first. Go ahead.
I had a few questions, and one, this is probably something obvious and I didn't see it in your 3D representation. I noticed the Rise playground was adjacent to April Street, but I didn't see a fence. So what kind of fencing are they planning on having?
There will be a hefty fence.
Okay.
I'll give you just like a table fence. It'll be a hefty fence and there will be plantings and stuff. This is, with that, this building, actually, we moved it further off. Yeah, this is definitely an area.
I mean, I knew there was something, I just didn't know what kind. And just jumping to the decision coming up on the HVAC system, and I saw this 135 million estimate. Does that estimate assume like a mid-range in the HVAC costs or the most expensive option? Like which HVAC was built into that 135 estimate?
Great question. In that current estimate, we have full geothermal wells because we every time we've given a number, we've always kept it the same. So we use the full geothermal wells. The OPM and the designer have been working on these past few months of the site sequencing and how many geothermal wells are needed and can it be done because our site is really small. We've been talking about early packages. We've been talking about bringing the contractor on early. And all of this is gonna magically come together at our November 20th meeting. What they will do is, they presented us with 5 different options. So but they haven't presented us the true cost yet. So they'll present the costs. My guess is that one of those with the cost is just, everybody's gonna be making the same
Is
decision.
full geothermal wells, what they told you was the most expensive option?
So that is the one that we chose to, that is the option we chose to base our numbers on. We have 2 options that are hybrid. So they're half geothermal wells and then half other systems for the ventilation portion of it. The geothermal will be for the heating and the air conditioning. And then they have others, other packages with boilers and.
Okay.
And
And just the last question's more an observation, and with the superintendent here, maybe you can answer. I was quickly trying to get sizes, so this is gonna be bigger than either middle school. Because I looked up and it said Parker Middle School is about 105,000, it's 122, and Coolidge just seems smaller than Parker. So it's bigger than a middle school, it's a pretty big school.
And if, because all of our schools are undersized, not
Yeah.
ours in Reading, everywhere, they're undersized. This is the size that, the existing Killam is about half the size that it should be.
Okay, thank you, I'm done.
Go ahead.
The design pricing, the square footage, about 123,000. Does that include the 8,000 square feet that MSBA is not paying for?
The total project
Yeah.
cost, that's for the whole
So
project.
so on your presentation, all of the PSR updates that MSBA will not participate in funding.
Yeah,
Is that included in that square footage?
yes,
So it is included in there.
yes.
And the price includes that because it's about $7 million just for what they're not paying for. So that's part of the 135. So it's basically decided that we will build that, even though they're not paying for it, right?
Yes. So those are the option that the committee has said, these are the things that are priority that we should build. The MSBA, about 51% of eligible costs they'll pay for,
But not for
but not for those. We are pushing back on one of them, but we're actually really happy that they gave us some of the things we didn't expect.
Is that BSA reimbursement, is it based on square footage of the different types of classrooms, gyms, whatever, or is it cost of building different types of space?
There is an unbelievable spreadsheet and it tells you eligible square footage per kid, per size. They will tell you how big of a classroom you can have. They will tell you the minimum amount of a classroom that you can have, but they will give you what they will pay for. So it is an enormous spreadsheet of square footage costs.
It's a square footage cost. So the spreadsheet is how much they think it costs to build a square foot of a gym versus a classroom versus a cafeteria, or is it just we will reimburse 4 classrooms and we'll take the square footage of the classrooms divided by the whole building and say that's the cost of the classrooms?
It is the square footage that they will allow, right? And that they will participate in. The market comes up with the square footage costs,
Okay.
right? So
Right.
So, the pricing is going up. We were really fortunate about 8 or 9 months ago that the MSBA increased their amount of reimbursement by like $55, which was huge. Part of that was site cost and part of that was construction cost, but that was huge. We are hoping that they do it again, but usually after the vote is taken, actually recently, they actually almost, even if they were in construction, they gave some money to some other projects. So, but they will determine what they think is the appropriate square footage per classrooms, per gyms, per conference rooms, and they will list all of that out. And then if you want to tweak it like we did with our classroom space, we said, okay, for 1,000 I can't remember what it was up there,
Yeah.
right? 1,000, square foot for a classroom space. We said, let's do 900 and we're gonna put 100 of it in the front, in the front porch. So they'll pay for it, but it just became a different space for us, if that makes sense.
The other
I'm
one, actually,
sorry.
the gym is 6,000 square feet is what they would, is eligible. So that's why we had decided that number is the 1,200 that we're going over, because that's what we had decided we would need to be able to meet the needs of what, rec and things would need to. But they gave us that number, 6,000 square feet, pretty straight.
Sorry, John, you don't finish that.
Are those reimbursement rates kind of locked in now, or can that still change between now and when? Like, if they say it's 51% of the, whatever they're gonna participate in, could that be different 3 months from now, or 50%?
We will have our definite numbers right before we go out for bid. Once we get we'll get those numbers and then we will present them to the voters, and that it's not gonna be exact, but it will be the numbers that we'll have at that point.
So it's numbers and then town meeting and then vote to bid.
It's gonna be like
Right.
fast.
But it'll be before town meeting, before it goes to bid.
Say,
This will come before town meeting,
Yes.
before it goes out to bid.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. Yep. Sorry if I wasn't there.
So on the things that MSBA will participate, it says classrooms grades 1 to 5 and pre-K. I don't see K. Is there, why is kindergarten not in the list?
Is that the classrooms?
Should.
Oh, it should be.
Should be.
Okay,
Yeah.
it should be K to 5. instead of 1 to 5.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, what happened to kindergarten?
Good catch.
You said, let's see, 51% reimbursement would be about $40 million. So that's,
Of reimbursable.
so they're gonna reimburse us on $80 million. At 51% gives us about $41 million. So there's $55 million is the stuff that we want in the school that MSBA is not participating in. Is that, did I do my math right?
What are you using as a square footage for construction?
If the total cost is 135 million, right? And we have $80 million is reimbursed, is what SBA is going to participate in.
Yeah.
And 51% of that is 40.
Yes.
So I have 40 million that
Yes.
MSBA is reimbursing,
Yes.
40 million that they're not, because that's the other 49%. And then 55 million to get us up to the total cost of
Right.
135 million. My understanding was that the more green your school is, the better the reimbursement rate. So, and that's a top level, that changes that 51%, right?
We will get all the green reimbursements with
Okay,
what we're gonna choose.
okay.
And it will most likely be an all electric school.
And my understanding was that changed that 51% based on how green you are, is how much reimbursement.
Yes, but we will hit their,
So like, even though the cost of the geothermal might be a little more, it's just the geothermal, and that gives us a better reimbursement on $80 million, on a percentage of $80 million, which is a lot of money, a percent or two of $80 million is a lot of money.
so for geothermal, there's a lot of, there are a lot of rebates that will come back, right? So we'll know that going in, what they will, it can't be factored into what our debt exclusion is. We have to wait until after, and they say, okay, you did this right, then they'll issue it. And at that point, that money is typically used for other things, but we can't go in pretending we have that money when we go to borrow. We have to borrow for the full amount.
So the amount of the debt exclusion.
Yes, for the full amount. There are hefty, there's hefty money coming back from those geothermal wells.
Okay.
They're the most efficient, right? They're the
Yeah.
most efficient, they're the most expensive. But there's a lot of reimbursement coming back there.
Just quickly, Colin, the total project cost, does that include like what, 10-15% overage or?
That's everything in there, but that's just an estimate too.
Yeah, no, it's an
Yeah.
estimate, but
Yeah.
you're included like that. Percentage,
Yeah, all of that.
yeah, okay. And then I'm sure people ask, like, if you just did option A, right, is that basically throwaway? Like in 5-10 years?
Yeah, we can't because it's not even big enough. So, but they make you go through this process to get there. And you can see that the second option of the, you know, bringing it up to code and the addition is more expensive.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any other questions? Oh, I see a hand up on Zoom. Emily, please go ahead.
Thanks, Joe. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
So Joe M just asked my first question about contingency, but my second question is the slide said this is for new construction. I am assuming the cost for demolition is also included in these
Yes.
estimates? Okay,
Yes.
cool. I just wanted to double check because I feel like we're probably gonna end up with some booby traps with, you know, lead or asbestos or something terrible, so.
The
Thanks,
initial,
Carla.
the initial testing they did on the site was good. So,
Awesome.
Emily is justifiably scared of the Killam building itself, the existing one.
Right,
Which,
lead in the pipes.
right.
we're gonna sell pieces of it off, Emily.
It's gonna be ready just in time for my kid to go to 6th grade. It's perfect. I love it. Thanks, everyone.
I'm looking for other questions here. Other people have asked, I did have some questions, but other people asked, I was curious about kindergarten. So I'm happy to hear that it sounds like all the HVAC options are considering would get us the full credit for green building. That's a relief. So.
They force you to, if you don't have all electric, to be electric ready.
Okay.
You know, so their incentives and everything are driving it, and it's cost effective. These systems are cost effective. It's just, they're different from what we used to.
Oh, Karen.
Yeah, this question came up at the last town school building meeting. So of the designs being proposed for geothermal to qualify for Inflation Reduction Act, hefty reimbursements for geothermal on top of what Carl's been talking about. You need to be at 50% of your heating cooling capacity, but the designers assured us that the options they're presenting will qualify us for that. So
So they come with a warranty for how many years?
many,
Not enough, probably 5.
like 20 or something.
So for the debt exclusion, it'll be none of the rebates or any of the promo. So will that be known though at the time of the vote, or is that known after? And will that reduce the debt immediately when those refunds come in?
When those come in, then they'll come into the town, and then the town will decide, is that going towards debt? Is that going towards other things?
Or will we know that at the time?
Yeah, yeah.
of the vote?
Right, because we want to know what we're getting down the road. We want to make sure we're getting it down the road.
Yeah.
We just have to be compliant with it.
That's good to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Right. Moving on our agenda, hear about the update on the recount project. Is that, Mark, are you presenting? Sure, why not? If Jackie has slides from Mark.
Oh, you should put it here. That's okay.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So, thanks, folks. So if anyone here who doesn't know me, I'm Mark Doxer. I'm a member of the select board. I was a member of the Reading Center for Active Living Committee. I'm now a member of the Permanent Building Committee that's related to this project. And given the timing, I thought it'd be good to put together just an update for everybody. So this is more of just the facts in terms of what's going on. So ReCal is the Reading Center for Active Living. It's very focused on the 60+ community in town. Go to the next slide, please, Jackie. So this is kind of a summary of everything that's going on right now. So just update. We transitioned. We had the Reading Center for Active Living Committee that reported to the select board, and their mission was to go out and understand the needs of the community, see how we could best serve that, explore different communities and best practices, and then also take a look at the sites that might be available inside the town of Reading. So we did all of those activities, we put them together. We came back to the select board with a recommendation. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But also we had a timed life. Our mission was to do that, then deliver it, and then transition to the Permanent Building Committee, the PBC. And the way the Permanent Building Committee works in town is this is a great group of folks, and Pat Tompkins, the chair, is in the back corner there, who are professionals that understand all different things about construction, about building, so that they can manage projects for the town. They're very involved in the school project, obviously. They're very involved in the Reading Center for Active Living. And the structure that the town put in place is that this group, this Permanent Building Committee, would take over in terms of taking the project forward. So what's happened is it's now in the hands of the Permanent Building Committee. I wrote +2 because when a project is done that has a specific sponsor and a specific community it works for, members are added per the town charter. So the 2 members that were added were Nancy Zimlak, who was the chair of the Council on Aging, she's in the corner back there, and myself representing the select board. So we're the additional members related to that. The next activity that we needed to do is that we needed to have an owner's project manager to manage a project of this magnitude. We did not have that in place back in August, which basically is when Recalc came in with its recommendations. So we needed to go through that step specifically, and that involved going out, soliciting bids and a lot of activities that has culminated with the hiring in October of this year. So just this month, this is still October, right? So we've just done that. Is the contract signed, Chuck? It is. Okay, so now it's a done deal. Fabulous. There is an environmental study that is taking place. Actually, it took place last week. So I'm looking at the soil at Simons Way. So I should take one step back. The recommendation of the Recalc Committee, the recommendation of the Council on Aging, has been that the Simons Way site is the right location to do this. One of the questions that came up about that site is that it's land that we purchased from a construction firm. And what's going on with the soil? Are there any issues? And whatever this town is going to do with that site, we need to know what's going on so that we can better deal with it. We're certainly not going to put any residents in harm's way. So we've been able to now do a study. It was just conducted last week, and we hope to have some information back for next week to talk further about it. The next step in all of our activities is to finalize the site selection. So we looked at a lot of different sites in Reading. In fact, more recently, a couple of other potential sites came up and into the picture. We wanted to make sure that we've looked at every possibility that can happen. The wonderful thing about Reading is our community. The unfortunate part about Reading is there's not a lot of open space that we can use for activities. To some extent, Simons Way is the last space that's out there. So what's going to happen is we need to finalize the site selection, move forward to do schematic drawings, and included with the schematic drawings will be clearer cost estimates in terms of what's going on. The intent of this is to bring it forward to the community pretty much on the same timeline that the school is also. And the intent in that is to say that the community deserves to understand what projects are on the horizon and what we're thinking about. And whether it's the exact same timing or it's not the exact same timing, the community needs to be aware of the things that we're looking at and where the priorities are for the community. So that's the reason for this April 2025. Next slide, please, Jackie. So a little bit more detail. So Recalc looked at the needs of the 60+ community. It's more than 28% of the population of this town right now, and forecast to be growing to 30%, potentially even more. It is the largest single group in town. We identified, researched the different opportunities. We benchmarked a series of other communities. We visited other either senior centers or centers for active living. And I probably should highlight to everybody that the word choice here is very intentional and very careful, because we're just trying to serve the 60+ community. We're not trying to exclude anybody. We're trying to be very inclusive in all the activities that we're doing and to make sure that we're really serving this big chunk of the community. So the Center for Active Living seems to be the term that is used now that seems to represent things better. It doesn't carry any negative stigma, and I think it offers opportunity beyond what we're talking about. We also highlighted best practices, recommended Simons Way, as I mentioned, and with the sunset in August, it transitioned to the PBC. Next slide, please. The PBC accepted the Recalc project and then oversaw the hiring of the project manager, which is exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And then the PBC's next activity is to review the site selection materials and then make a recommendation. Next slide, please. So the OPM, Turner and Townsend Heary, or just Heary, did I do it right? I did it right, excellent. So the PBC recommended that we work with these folks. We were able to come to an agreement, sign a contract. They are now engaged in the site review, and we have a meeting. The PBC has a meeting, the Permanent Building Committee, next Monday, the 4th, to dig in on the site review activities. And Chuck Adam, and Chuck is a singular kind of guy, no S on the end, it's not Adams, it's Adam. Chuck, who I will ask to just maybe in 1 second to say hello and just introduce yourself to the group. They have put together already, they've dug in very deep and are putting together their assessment of all the work that's already been done. We'll be bringing that forward to the Permanent Building Committee so that the Permanent Building Committee can have their discussion, see what questions, comments that they have, and take it forward. Chuck, can I ask you to maybe just say hello to the group, tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure, thanks for having us. Like Mark said, I'm Chuck Adam. I'm the Vice President, Regional Manager for Turner and Townsend Heary. We're an OPM, like the group that's working with your school. We have been doing OPM work since the 50s before anybody else was doing it by coincidence. But we like to get our hands into various projects, and this is an exciting one for us. When I started to chase this project more than 2 years ago, you were all looking at the Walgreens store. And there was a gentleman in my office that Jane knows who family grew up here and recently moved from here to Florida, the Ensmingers, and I really wanted to chase it. He really wanted to chase it because he grew up here. Well, then he moved on me. So he's living in Florida and we're still chasing it because we really wanted to be part of the project. So thanks for having us. As Mark said, we've done an awful lot of work. We've reviewed all the work that has been done by the architects. The work is very well done, and I'll say that right up front. We're going to review it at the PBC on Monday. We've already come up with some draft evaluation forms for them to review that are pretty much based on what was done by the study. I mean, the study was beautifully done, and I can't say that enough. We'll review it with them. We might change some criteria based on what PBC members feel, and we'll go through and score it again. But as Mark said, we also walked through the couple of other sites and other things. We identified those in the report, but I think it's all going to work out real fine. Our hope is, and we're working with Pat, is to get through the building committee sometime in November and wrap it all up. So if they feel good about it, make the right recommendation, and then we're ready to go. We're meeting with the architect already. We've met a number of times with them. They're anxious to get started. They really want to get moving, and I really want them to get moving. So we're looking at that schedule. It's tight, but we're going to make it. So thanks for having us. We're glad to be here and help out.
Thanks, Chuck.
Next slide, please, Jackie. So the environmental study at Simon's Way. So they did soil testing literally last week. We should have some preliminary results next week at the meeting. So preliminary, but hopefully we'll see what's there. This would give us some guidance on the site conditions that are there, and if there are any considerations we need to think about, whether anything needs to be mitigated, and maybe different ways of doing that. We'll see what we find. This obviously has potential impact on the site for the Center for Active Living, possibly even for pickleball courts, depending on what's found and what we need to do there. Next slide, please. So site selection, the PBC is having a working session on November 4th. As Chuck just mentioned, the goal is to finalize the recommendation in November and then bring it to the select board. Next slide, please. We have been working with architects called BH+A. That's who Chuck was referring to. They did all the work and all the drawings that we shared actually back at town meeting last year. That last year? I think it was last year. Or was it April? Could be April. Sorry, time's merging together. We were able to hire them as an architect based on ARPA funds that were allocated by the select board. And this goes back to 2023, maybe even 2022, but I think 2022, 2023.
Yeah, we signed their contract.
In 2022?
Last year.
Yeah, okay. So we want to move to the next phase upon site selection and approval by the select board. So that's exactly what Chuck was talking about. The design should take 60 to 90 days to complete. It is a schematic design at 60-ish%. anyway, it's an advanced stage in the design, which would allow for more accurate cost estimates and quite a bit of input into what's going on. And again, a lot of the work was done. Working now with Thierry, with the OPM on community sessions to take place in early 2025 and present to the community ideally in February based on that 60 to 90-day timeline, which would allow us to get a funding article targeted for April 25 town meeting. Next slide, please. Any questions?
Go ahead, Andrew.
So what will happen with the senior center then? Is it the goal?
Thank you for bringing that up. So I meant to bring that up. So at the next select board meeting, there is an agenda item to start a discussion about what some of the possible options could be for the current Pleasant Street Center. The town has been approached by a developer, unsolicited. We had some ideas in terms of using that site to add to it and to create some, I think, residential activity. Again, unsolicited, town didn't do anything about that. We know that there are some town groups that would love to utilize that space. We have some town groups that are currently displaced that could use that space really, really nicely, other community activities. It may be that there's value in either leasing the space or possibly even doing other activities, even a sale. So I think your question is spot on. We need to explore what alternatives we have. It would become a town asset to be used for other activities. And it may be that the way to do that is we may want to have a committee or something that looks into that, but certainly lots of input from the community on different ideas as to what we could do. Okay.
Hi, so I'll preface my comments by I absolutely support the idea of a senior center. I'm rapidly approaching the age group to be part of it. But as I reflect back on what we just saw for Killam and the process there, they had different size projects with different costs and different options like, oh, are we going to have the Rise preschool in or out? And what I remember from the BH&A is, 3 design ideas on 3 different sites that were all, I think, around 26,000 square feet. And I didn't see different options to meet the needs of our seniors, because when I look at what some of our peers are doing, like Wilmington is just about ready to complete a senior center. They're a similar population to us. Their senior center, which I think is going to open in January, is 18,000 square feet. North Andover, which has about 5,000 more people than us, they completed a senior center, I think in 2021, if what I'm reading, of 13,000 square, 13.5 square, spit it out, 13.5 thousand square feet. And Andover added on to theirs. They're again, a little more population than us for 16,000 square feet. So we're building we're proposing, talking about a considerably bigger one, even though we don't really have any greater number of seniors than Wilmington, Andover, or North Andover. I really want to see something get built and not have the community reject it. Is there a thought of trying to at least come up with an option that is more in line with what some of the peers are, so that you get something versus nothing? Because I just get concerned about, okay, there's whatever the debt exclusion is, 135 million for that, and then they're talking 27 to 30 million for a senior center. Will the community go for it all? If we had at least our OPM say, what if we built something more on the scale of an Andover or Wilmington? I'm sorry, North Andover, because that's new. Andover was adding on, and I know that's not an option, because I'd rather have something than nothing. So I don't know what you guys have talked about.
So I think we've talked about a few things. One is, first of all, in terms of thinking about projects, this is an and situation, not an or situation. In other words, these are, in my opinion, the 2 highest priorities this community faces. Is dealing with a new Killam school and having a new center for active living.
I don't mean it as an or, I just mean there's a limited
I understand.
money.
I understand. One of the differences that may be part of what you're thinking about in square footage is the notion of having a gym that would have access for the entire community. So the benefit of doing it there, number one, in that location is, number one, for the 60+ population, as we're now talking about pickleball and other things, to have a gym, to have a walking track, all as part of that. We surveyed a number of different communities who didn't include gyms. And we asked them, if you had a second chance, what would you do differently? And they said, we put in a gym.
But you guys surveyed residents here who said that they didn't want to pay more than $100 to $200 in debt exclusion for a senior center. So it's like they want, Alexis at a Kia budget. How are you going to make it work?
So a lot of the feedback we got was that the notion of more of a community center would make it much more appealing. And that the opportunity to do that would be with this gym as part of the facility. And in the drawings, a lot of it is set up so that there would be, much as this area of the library has separate and closed off entrances that are possible, it would be possible in that building as well.
So it's, my last question is, it's not possible to phase something in like that later, like get the senior center built, then possibly add a gym in another phase to the same Simon's Way property?
So I think certainly you could consider phasing things on any project.
Yeah,
The only issue is that, two issues. One is the general accomplishment of phasing it is to move into higher costs when you do it the next time. So I'm not sure that there's much savings that comes from that. And the second is, what's the real need that we're trying to address? And I think that's what the focus of all the work that Recalc did, all the work that the architect has done so far. What's the real need for the community? So to have a facility that's serving the 60+ population without gym, without a walking track, certainly would be much better than what we have today, but not really serving the community for the needs that are there.
but it would serve the seniors though, who need their own space and their own gather. I mean, Wilmington's got a fitness room and other things. They don't have a gym.
And that's the question. I think that the survey results came back and a lot of the discussion was more community oriented in terms of what they were looking for. And the survey that we did, so as one who does surveys, when people don't necessarily understand the cost of things and you ask them to throw out a number, the numbers come back very low. And I understand, and we want to spend as little as we can, be as cost effective as we can, not even a question. The other thing that the COA members have been spending a lot of time working on me about is that the community of 60+ here in Reading is growing. It's growing faster than state averages. It's growing faster than all sorts of other things. It will be 30% in another year or two of the community. So to kind of do a lesser solution while it is growing so quickly seems pretty short-sighted to me. Are there options to look at? I'm sure that there are. I would just be cautious of the dollar today being held back so we can spend $2 tomorrow for the same thing.
Just second that, the senior population is expected to double in the next 25 years. So if we have 7,000 somewhat now, we're talking about 14,000 by 2050. And we have to think to the future. The current senior centers were perhaps not built with those ideas in mind. The senior population is growing and the children population is declining. So we have to balance both of those, I think. And the senior population 60+ is important to recognize. It's not just the 80 to 100. The gym is very important to the 60+. The 70, early mid-70s. It's one of the ways they stay healthy, socialize, healthy, exercise.
And I think one of the interesting things because of Simon's Way, because of configuration there, the opportunity to have sports courts, pickleball courts in particular, right next to that facility will serve that population really, really well. To have a gym means indoor pickleball as well. It means all sorts of other activities that can take place. I'm sure I'm being quoted as saying, I'd love to see it available 24/7. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but that's a facility that can be used. Having it carved off and locked off makes it another huge asset for the community. So to me, I think that's the right approach. Are there others? Absolutely.
So, Mark, have you explored any funding options? Is there, grants or earmarks, federal or state? Has that been pursued at all?
So we've talked to our delegation, trying to find a way to phrase this in a way that could get funded, and we haven't found it yet. It is on the radar of all of the reps and senators of talking about it, trying to figure it out. Have not talked to the federal folks about it yet, But that has to be there. And I think any grant opportunity has to be part of whatever activity we do here, figuring out what can we do, other opportunities. We did talk to, so Chris and I visited Randolph, thank you. AARP does a lot of activities that I don't know that we're fully aware of in terms of funding and other activities. All this to say, we need to look at every single possible thing.
Go ahead. Sorry, just to follow up on that. I think looking at the grants now that we're getting, we have the OPM, we're getting closer to the schematic design. It's going to be a little bit easier to look for those grants now that we can specify, the site, what the building is. So up until this point, we're starting to get more focused, which will allow us to look for those grants and other funding options now that we can specify, what it is, the site, the building, and what we're looking for. So moving forward, we should be able to look for that funding now that we're focused more.
And we have started the Friends of Seniors 60 plus to help if whatever we can.
Did you introduce yourself a little bit? Did you introduce?
I did, would that be all right?
Oh, go ahead.
Can Joanne introduce yourself in the group?
Nope, we're gonna put it on you. Can you introduce yourself to us?
Oh, stand up, Joanne.
Sorry.
Joanne Wooldridge, the president of the Friends of Reading Senior 60 plus. And we are vigorously trying to fundraise. And everybody around the table here is welcome to donate. We have a website in development, a Facebook page in development. We're having difficulty with our technical capabilities. And age 80, we are not the best at high tech, but we are very hopeful that we can do some really aggressive fundraising and advocacy for the seniors in town, because I think it is past time to do some advocacy for the seniors in town, and they deserve to be seen, heard, and recognized. And the people around this table here are the ones that are actually going to be benefiting from what we do with the new senior center. It's not going to be me, it's going to be you.
Yeah. Hello, Anne Marie Bork, also, with this crowd. One of the things that struck me on that great presentation that you did, the recap, was talking about the amount of square footage and all of this. How much square footage do we have of usable space for right now?
We have less than 5,000 square.
Yeah, like 2,600 square feet. That is the usable space. There is not a private office. There's no privacy. So if you're gonna talk to the vet or the Shine Council or anybody else, there's no place private. But 2,600 square feet of usable space, 2 rooms and the big room. And computers downstairs, right? And then there's the jail cell. You never stop by and see the jail cell. Yes, ma'am.
Nancy Zimlak, Chair of the Council on Aging, and we've been working with Recalc for the last 2 years on this project. And Recalc has been very collaborative on this, and we appreciate how far it's gotten. I encourage anybody to go to the Pleasant Street Center and visit it. It is not big enough. There are some accessibility issues. We hope the odor was fixed, but there was a terrible odor in that building. So that building is going to require some infrastructure repairs if we have to continue to use that. So just so you know, also, the Council on Aging does have available trust funds. So we do have funds that we use to support programming for the 60 plus crowd, as well as kinds of improvements that might be needed.
Marilyn Shapley, I've been on the Council on Aging for 10 years. But we talk about the 30% will, soon will be 30% of the population. That doesn't do much in my brain. What makes it clearer to me is if we continue to grow it, not that there's any reason not to, but we hear 30% of this, 20% of that. It's not earth shattering, but what I find earth shattering is when I hear that if we continue the 60+ group continues to grow at the rate it has been for about the last 5 years, within 5 years, 1 out of every 3 of us will be 60 or older in the entire town. And that's including the children. So think about it. It's like every 3rd person will be a beneficiary of the infrastructure we're trying to prepare for. So.
Mark, just very final questions. I definitely agree with the need and like build it and then it'll come. I definitely think it's true. My only concern is like what Arnie brought up is about the existing Pleasant Street, because I think before April town meeting, like, having a plan if possible for what's going to happen there. Because I'm sure we can find a way to use that space, but I was in it for the first time in my life a year ago, and I mean, it needs maintenance. I mean, I just think like it's going to cost the town a lot to maintain that. And I'm sure we can find groups that need that space, but with what being proposed now with Killam and what this could turn into. Yeah, I don't know. I just would hate to just hold the building for for what it could be used for.
Right. I don't think.
Or the cost for this should include some projected maintenance costs for Pleasant Street.
Yeah, and maybe the flip side, which is projected either rental income or whatever.
Yeah, like prioritize it with the ability maybe to rent space back to particular groups if they really think they need it. So
completely agree. I think we need to have some idea. I don't think we can say, here it is, this is what we're going to do. But I think it would be great to have the community come in and say, here's some ideas. Maybe we do encourage input from folks. We did get the one unsolicited group that came in with a whole plan for, I think, keeping the building as it was and adding to it, with some residential activity. So I think there are a lot of possibilities, and it's a town asset that wouldn't be being used. It needs to be.
One more road trip. By all means, go visit the Pleasant Street Center if you haven't seen it yet. But also really encourage you to take a trip up to North Andover or even just drive by the building that's being built in Wilmington, just to get a visual of what similar sized or even smaller sized towns are filled with reasonable people are doing for the 60+ population. And I know North Andover, we've talked to them many times, they're really supportive of what we're trying to do. If you go in and say, I'm from Reading, they just look around, they'll be happy to have you see it. And it's just night and day difference. And you see rooms filled with people with lots of varied interests. It's not a cookie cutter, only the bingo game is in here kind of place at all. You see really different interests and different kind of socialization and different opportunities for people to interact in different ways. And it's really pretty building. And I trust that when they open doors in Wilmington, it will be too. If you drive by, it's like, wow. So,
but I pointed it out, and it's like 8,000 square feet smaller than what we're proposing. That's just why I said I've looked at the layout and all their plans. It's a lot. Would still be 3 times what you have now. That's why I don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good. I want we need something.
No, that is true, but if you talk to the director, she will say they should have built bigger.
Yeah.
And they should have a gym.
Not open yet.
So, there's already space issues, so you gotta take everything with a.
But again, I caution us, for any project that we're doing, this town has had very good foresight in thinking about things, not taking the cheapest route, taking the right route. And I think we got to stand up and do that with the projects that we're talking about.
John. Mark, is there any consideration for how members of the 60+ community who don't drive are going to get to the new senior center?
So once we have a site selected, that's going to help a lot. But one of the things the select board asked Recalc to do is to look into transportation kinds of things. And we found that depending on the community, depending on how much activity is, there are different approaches to it. There is some AARP activity. Salem now has the Salem Skipper, which is going on, which is rides around town. We have 2 vehicles currently. We have one driver, but we have 2 vehicles. So that is an important piece of it. So 2 aspects. One is to make sure there's sufficient parking, because right now that is an issue that we're dealing with. So Simon's Way can certainly handle that part of the issue. And the second is transportation for people who don't drive. Absolutely. You know, there's a bigger thing going on here also when you realize that 30% of the community is going to be age 60 plus. Right now, the way that funds are budgeted inside the town and on an operating basis aren't reflective of that, right? And there are other needs that right now ARPA has done a great job of supplementing. ARPA's ending, right? We're going to have spent it all. Then what? So there are additional needs that we need to be talking about to support 30% of the community. And transportation, I bet, is one of them.
And then this might be more of a select board question, but if we're talking about expanding the number of people coming to Killam every day, plus the senior center going on, kind of everything on, there's a lot more traffic on Havel Street, which is right now kind of a dragway with limited sidewalks. I think one of the architects for Killam project said at one of the meetings that that street is terrifying to do with it. Is there any efforts from the select board to traffic calming, better infrastructure on that to make that road less terrifying for all the drivers that we're going to add to it?
Yeah, so I can't speak for the whole board, but the whole board is here and hearing what you're saying. One of the things that does have to happen, however, is coordination between projects and thinking about how that might impact the area. I think that's something there. And then as I'll speak just as an individual board member, we're the road commissioners. So that does fall under us in terms of talking about that, absolutely.
I don't see any hands raised on Zoom. So I'm going to say thank you, Mark, for the presentation. And thank you, everyone, for your questions and discussion. If anyone wants to leave this point, we'll go ahead and let them. Yes, so the next on our agenda, look at a couple of items.
Thank you so much. 11.
Carlo, could you, we're getting a request for you to. Well, actually, I think we're still going to have more on Zoom.
Okay, just let me know that.
Yeah. Do we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn. The select board.
Okay. Motion, do a second?
There's 3 people on Zoom still. So we're not quite ready, but I just want to make sure.
They may follow up.
I can do a roll call.
I don't know how this works. Sure, second.
It's seconded.
All right,
Carla.
we're done? Okay, good night.
You got a roll call.
Roll call. Yes, Karen.
Yeah.
Yes, Mark.
Yes, Melissa.
Carlo.
Yes, Chris. Good night.
Good
All
night.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Give people in the room to file out. And we will proceed with our agenda. So yes, we have been asked to revote on 2 town meeting warrant articles. Oh, okay, all right, that's okay. Well, we've been asked to revote on 2 town meeting warrant articles.
After I
Now
say
we're not gonna have to.
the
So,
next one, it's gonna go.
all right, so a lot background
I'll
noise
close the
here.
door, but I.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, guys.
Hi, Jane.
What did I do?
Have trouble closing this door. We got it. All right, switching to, okay, yes, I don't see, all right.
Motion under Article 3.
So, yes,
That's
so
the
I'm gonna hand,
It's, what does it say?
it's,
It's supposed to be Article 4 and 5, but 5 doesn't need to happen, but I'll explain all
all
of
right.
this.
So, I think it may be
She
referenced.
gave Article 3.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
before you, I see
All
the
right.
blue, the blue.
So let me hand it forward to Sharon to talk about what we do and don't need to vote on.
So we're just amending Article 4 because just yesterday we realized that the fire truck that we had gotten, I think it was November of 2023, we actually had voted $130,000 from the Parker roof to go in for the fire truck. And yesterday we realized that nobody encumbered that money and it closed to free cash, and free cash got certified yesterday. And so the truck is almost ready to be delivered, and now we don't have the 130,000 that we're supposed to have. Because that happens automatically, we just close it, if you didn't encumber it, the PO goes away. So what I'm looking to do is for C99, increase that number by 130,000, and then on the bottom line, for free cash will go up 130,000 because that's where it went.
Will the money be there in time to take delivery of the truck, or do you, because I don't think we have any FinCom reserve.
We don't have enough income reserve. It'd have to wait for town meeting either way, so.
Is the truck coming
The
before
truck on the way.
The truck is in Lawrence, it's not ready for delivery yet, there's a number of things has to happen. It has to be lettered, radios have to be installed in it, and some equipment to be mounted. So we're a few weeks out. to
Okay,
take delivery.
and someone told me it hit a deer on its way here.
Did it really?
Yeah, so-
Oh, that's horrible. Well, that gives us some delay though.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, it gives us time to get our.
It means it was fortuitous.
The insurance will cover it, right?
It was, so just to get the full story, the manufacturer is Seagrave and they drive it to us.
So we had not taken possession, they are
Correct. It
responsible.
was a Seagrave employee that was driving it in Pennsylvania and it hit a deer. And there's minor damage to the front, to the bumper, which will be replaced. And the siren was dented and that'll be replaced. And there was some chip paint to the front, very minor, that will be repaired.
Does this sort of thing affect the lifespan? of The truck, okay.
Do they don't have like fire facts, like Carfax, with an accident.
It won't affect the operation. Anyway.
You got the venison.
Perfect time.
I don't know, the driver said it went off to the other side of the highway.
So the deer might have made it.
So, all right, so are there any questions about this?
How much was free cash certified at?
So free cash was certified a little lower than I expected. They held about $1.4 million of deficits, and some of their numbers varied from mine, but that means that next year those monies will come back to us in free cash. So we had an MVP grant where we had spent over $1 million, but some of it was AP, and usually they just take your deficit to cash, but they actually took the AP. So I had like a $700,000 deficit that I deducted. They deducted like almost $1.1 million. So the numbers were a little bit different because they were taking a little bit of a different approach to how they did it, a more conservative approach, obviously. And so the number came down by about $1 million. I'd say 900,000. It was, but it was all it's being held just by, them just holding deficits. That they treat it as if these different grants have borrowed the money from the general fund, and so they want to be conservative and say, well, you can never get that money.
Yeah.
And so, so it was 19.293 or something like that.
That's I understand the number was sent to the select board and Sharon Herrick actually emailed it to me because she correctly guessed that I would be interested to see it. 19.23 million.
Yeah, but knowing that next year that will just come back to us, because as soon as you get the grant funds, they'll release it. And the MVP project, I think, is done, so we should be seeing those funds coming in soon.
Trying to break records for regeneration again, but here we go. All right.
Well, next year, we could probably use
No,
it. Yeah, so the only article I need you to vote on tonight is Article 4, because Article 5, we passed due invoice. After I put it in the packet, I realized that there was a PO out there for it, which means that the money is being held from that fiscal year and it's available to pay. And so you don't need to do this particular one. When it was brought to me, they said, I don't think we have it. So when I went searching, I did see that it was there. And so you no longer need to vote Article 5, just Article 4.
So
It says the due date on the invoice was September 4th of 2023.
I'm just surprised nobody reached out to say, hey, we don't have our money, like,
Yeah.
it's a long time.
Little money for them.
I don't normally see, last few years, we haven't had any prior year bills, so I was very surprised to see it. I don't know if there was a reason why we held it, or if it got lost in the shuffle and nobody reached out to us to say, hey, this is past due, but this is very overdue. I would have been embarrassed to have to bring this to town meeting.
Or was there progress payments made? Is that why you balance?
I don't know. I think this had something to do with that regional housing. Didn't Jane say it was something to do with that?
Is you talking about the Civic Plus?
Yeah, the Civic
I
Plus.
think it had to do with the web, that's the website company that we use.
Yeah, I
So-
thought she said it had something to do with the regional housing that we do, something that was being done by Civic Plus for that.
Oh, maybe.
And so PO was not for technology, but was coming from community services.
Services, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know what happened, why they weren't looking to collect it sooner. It is very overdue.
Yeah.
3 years
Did we
overdue.
pay the difference of the 5,500 to the?
Yeah, we must have. I mean, actually, the PO is for like 5,700. So if they did pay it, they paid it without the PO. But they're saying this is what's due currently. We'll definitely look into it, but there's enough to pay more if it's still outstanding. This is just what we received. Interesting, though.
Any other comments or questions? Case.
Move to approve Article 4.
Second.
Article 4 is amended.
Yes, as amended, yes. So the motion is motion to recommend the substance of Article 4 to town meeting as amended. Thank you, Marianne, seconded by Andre. Let's vote. Emily?
Yep.
Joe?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Henry?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Marianne?
Yes.
And Joe, yes. It's unanimous.
Who's getting the report on Article 4?
1 second.
I think it's me.
I do, yeah, I did. That's
Do I have to get into that detail? or-
I'm about to say, it's
not-
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say 10:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that, should I just say on 10:30, not get into that we were.
I had to amend it.
Yeah, so well, then the warrant pack, the warrant's already out and that was.
I'm gonna have to, when I present it, mention that it's different from what's in the warrant book, so I'll be highlighting it in some way.
Yeah, we won't
So then you can
have to-
say that on October 30th, we voted to amend the substitute article as amended.
As amended, yeah, exactly.
Yep, sounds good. All right, so moving along the agenda. So we do not need to vote on amended subsequent town meeting warrant Article 5. I left a placeholder for continued discussion about finance committee policies. I'm gonna put that there, and actually I'm feeling tired after this discussion so far, so I'm actually gonna, unless anyone else wants to say anything on that point, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to discussion of future meeting dates and agenda items. So let me pull up the our posting schedule. Thank you. Okay, thank you. We're gonna get to stop voting for the same truck over and over again.
Eventually we'll see it.
Yeah. See it, Jeff.
Thank you.
Pulling up our schedule to mention.
So in total, how, I tried to get 1.7.
Yeah, it was expensive. I think that they came back to us and said they couldn't do it for the price that they originally agreed.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
not our norm.
No, but it's a tough market because of the fact that it wasn't like we could go somewhere else and get it cheaper. So, yeah, all right.
Money's.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Good.
All right, yeah, I mean, so the, okay, so we have a placeholder for a meeting next week, but now that we were able to vote on, unless you come up with another bill.
Well, I'm hoping not.
Yeah, we're all hoping not. I know there's an MBTA communities meeting, I think, on the 6th as well. I can't imagine Marianne not being there.
Maybe remotely.
Yep. Yep, and then so we don't actually have another, and then of course we hit town meeting. Just 4 nights on the calendar. I was hoping we get it done in not more than that. The select board presentations on the budget part, we usually post for those December 4th and 10th. But we don't have a regular FinCom meeting planned at this point.
I tell us in February, right?
Correct. We would start presenting. So actually, well, this is interesting. This actually has us presenting. So okay, so the school committee goes over their budget in January, which again, we theoretically are, posted for that. But then our next meeting that's really us is not until February 26th.
Where is that schedule you're looking at? Is that
It's
your own
on,
thing?
no, it's on our webpage. It's on the finance committee
Okay,
webpage, current fiscal year meeting schedule left there. So if something comes up, obviously we could meet in January, but otherwise we're gonna be, of course, very busy in February and March. Budget.
I don't think that was Carla saying they were trying to get the Killam to vote in the spring, as in the spring election?
No, Springtown meeting.
So after Springtown meeting, so late spring, so a
Yes.
separate special election for Killam.
Yeah, that was my understanding. I mean, it's conceivable that there could be a special town meeting and an election. And then, in time to put it on the ballot for the election, but you have to do that. I think you have to do that 6 days in advance of the election or something like that, which at that
Right,
point.
yeah,
is now
I don't, I'm
beginning
just
of
saying, if they
February.
decided to do that, that could involve us, but
No.
that's the only reason I see. It's hard to squeeze that in. It's hard to squeeze that in with budget meetings.
Right, yeah, well, it seems, given the timeline that was relayed, hold on, I'm looking back at my own notes.
And didn't Mark say something that he wanted to have, he didn't want to have the senior recount Center for Active Living, I'll get the name right, vote around the same time. He was
Yes.
hinting at that.
No, it sounds like, what I heard.
At the town meeting you brought it.
Yes, what I heard was targeting the same vote, and I mean, I've heard in our financial forum last spring, I remember the discussion where, there was I think both people involved with Killam and people involved with Recal were, there was some support for the idea of voting on the two at the same time.
So I didn't think the Killam people wanted the recount vote at the same
Well,
time at all.
Maybe not. I mean, it's,
I'm not sure you proclaimed with the MSBA or that. I thought it had to be a separate vote, but we can double check.
It is a
Yeah,
separate vote, but
that's-
it's on the same.
Oh, on the same day. Okay.
So separate
What,
ballots,
we also,
physically separate
oh
ballots.
gosh, okay, but I think.
But then
we-
is that true, while we're running two separate elections, is that?
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
wow.
I can answer that one. Yes.
That's a- Just a, I don't know.
That is not-
I don't know that that's a
that
FinCom
is-
undertaking, but that's
No,
quite an
it's
undertaking for our
something
town
collaborative,
clerk.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
In
very-
addition, so the spring election, then two debt exclusion elections at the same
Possibly.
time, possibly.
Speaking of which, where are we gonna have a special election during the summer if the high school floor is being replaced?
Here,
That might
at
get-
the library.
Yeah.
Didn't we have didn't we have early voting here at the library during
Yeah,
COVID? So they
we've
could-
talked about that. I don't know. We're gonna have to work around it somehow
something
because
else.
it's gonna be 3 months with that high school floor.
Could it
Yeah,
be
but it's not
possible to
gonna
do
close
it
till June, so wasn't the plan to have it there before?
Hopefully the vote
Hopefully
could be
before
before
the-
that, but we
before
haven't.
the closing of the
There's no, yeah, we couldn't do it at like one of the middle schools, which has they have a community room or a
It's
gymnasium.
possible, but
Trying to think of what has enough parking.
Usually you kill them, Jim, and everybody will vote for this.
Well, Coolidge, I mean, there's much more parking near Coolidge than, it's just a longer walk to the vote, but it's essentially the whole high school at Birch Meadow area is available near Coolidge, but where would, you could set it up in the Coolidge cafeteria. I mean, they've had robotics
Stuff, yeah.
competitions there, so that's pretty
Just
big.
looking like, yeah, town meeting, I mean, my understanding,
Legal.
you have to have, there's some delay between putting it on the ballot at town meeting and having the election. I don't know if that's 60 days, but if it is, town meeting doesn't start until April 28th. If it goes 4 nights, it would end on May 8th, 60 days from that,
I
puts you
think- I
into
think they-
July.
But I thought they had to have the vote before June 30th, 2025.
Oh, okay, so maybe
I
it
don't
would
know.
happen in
Yeah, but they
June.
don't plan on closing for the field house floor to be done until the end of June, because they sometimes have that as a little.
So this would
graduate.
so this is when you can wreck it all up because it's gonna be
You could do
changed.
the vote in,
Aware,
you
yeah.
know, before they close it.
So, all right,
To cover it.
I was just curious.
So next
And I think
meeting
they said.
will be-
Okay. So right-
Not until it's included
So-
on there.
January.
Yeah, so so we will, presumably post for, and I don't see why we shouldn't, the select board and school committee budget presentations.
Even if we just watch from home or something, yeah.
I didn't, I went to those last year and I was the only one there and I was like, maybe I should just.
No, I was watching
Watch the recap.
watching them later. It's faster to recap.
Yeah, it's exactly, it's faster when you watch the rewind on YouTube. 1.5x speed. So, yeah. But we will post for those, and then, but then the first meeting in which we are center stage is not until February 26th. By the way, I'm glad that's after school vacation week. So it's supposed to be during school vacation week. So, if something comes up, we need FinCom reserves again for something or whatever, something like, that usually only happens at the end of the year, but could meet sooner, but otherwise, we don't actually have to meet until February. Wow. Are there other things that people, and I'll go ahead and actually make a teaser comment about the thing that the thing about free cash that I was thinking of is, one curious thing about the way we keep our reserves is that we have a stabilization fund that's supposed to be so don't spend it. And it's actually really small, and most of our reserves are free cash. And so the question is whether we wanted to move more into the stabilization fund so that when people look at our free cash, they don't think, oh, we have $20 million to spend on stuff. No, we have like $9 million to spend on stuff and like $11 million just to maintain our reserves.
They have to understand the budget subsidizing that comes out of that too, that's
Yes,
gonna keep the override extended out.
Yes.
What is is this in the charter? Like, what is the procedure for spending money out of reserves? Is it similar to spending it out of free cash?
It's 2/3, I think. If something is.
Changed recently though, something about it not being 2/3, but a majority to use it for stabilization funds.
I'm not sure.
I thought Ivrea had said something had changed about the
Changes.
vote for stabilization funds to be used, so I'd have to ask her. but
familiar.
It does
Okay,
sound
yeah.
familiar, doesn't it? She said something about it changing, it
Right.
doesn't have to be 2/3, it could be.
Yeah.
Is that,
Majority
is
vote.
that a concern that only a simple majority could?
I think that stabilization funds being at a 2/3 vote to get them out makes them more secure and less.
Right, well, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying, but that could be the weakness of moving it out of free cash into stabilization if it's.
I don't think it's
Minimums.
a weakness to keep it in either one. I mean, I think the stabilization kind of separates what your reserve level that you were hoping to maintain is. You leave it in the stabilization
that's-
fund, and then what's in free, you could do it that way.
That's the-
When we're looking at, when bond rating agencies are looking at us, they're absolutely looking at all our reserves, not just free cash. So it wouldn't hurt
To
us to
them, it's
have it
moot
one.
because it's.
But in the past, it used to be a 2/3 vote, and maybe it still is. I thought I remember her mentioning something about something changing about that. But with it being 2/3, it's harder to get 2/3 vote at town meeting to take it out, and so it's more secure there.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've always wanted to have was the debt stabilization fund.
Mhm.
That will be, especially with all of the debt that we're gonna be taking out, but that's just an idea. We don't, it's a debt stabilization fund, you only use it to, like, if you have to stabilize your debt schedule, and debt payments, so. It's something to keep in mind if you don't know where to park the money.
So you mean to like build up like a reserve
For that.
for capital debt, really? Yeah.
I know a lot of towns
For
have
debt
that.
service? or-
Yeah.
But some places have a capital
not
debt
use it,
stabilization.
No,
which
it's a
is used for
stabilization fund. You
additional
can go
capital
where
or
you use it.
help
So it's more
fund
earmarked,
debt
I
payments, yeah,
guess.
yeah.
So
So-
it's more earmarked.
Stabilization funds tend to be like out there and never get used.
Yeah, I don't think
Right.
we've ever used anything
So
out of
it's-
the general
yeah.
stabilization, it's
It
just.
depends
growth.
on
I
how
hate
big
to
they
have
are.
too much in there And then we have an override and there's funds that we really should have used
Yeah.
as we went. And I think we ought to, like, you know, the stabilization is pretty big, but there's other funds that we should be using. You know, the like from the Burbank Rink that, I don't know what that's, but that's like 400 something thousand.
Yeah. But we have been better about using other funds that we've had running around, like the Parker roof and anything that's sitting around that we're like, we gotta clean this up.
But like,
Rather than just defaulting to free cash.
but the Parker roof, we had to use it, right, within 2 years or something?
Yeah, we had to use it,
Yeah, but like
But a lot of
these
times we
other,
default to free cash and don't pay attention to like, this project's over, there's money sitting here,
Yeah.
you
but I
know?
think like the Burbank is a good example of like 400 something thousand, and
Like
it never
four-
gets thought of to be used, and it really should be. You know,
But it's very specific on what to use it.
no, it's not.
No, it
It's
actually
not.
isn't, not, it's
No.
It's
not.
not, no, it's, there's a bit of a, there's been a discussion about this because I'm told that the spirit of it was for it to be used for recreational related expenses, and I understand that Carl McFadden from the Reading Ice Arena Authority has been talking with the rec committee and the select board about trying to make that official, but today that is not. Today it's.
The documents we have.
But even if it was, there's still rec use.
I mean, that's,
It should get
money is
used.
fungible, so like you
Yeah.
just, you take that money and you spend it on one rec thing, and you take the money you would have spent on the rec thing, you spend it on something else, so like, it's kind of, yeah.
No, it's a revolving. fund.
So it's,
Sharon, is our stabilization fund considered a special purpose stabilization fund, or is there another type?
So there's special purpose ones, so there is the smart growth is considered a special purpose, and then there's the sped one.
Because when relating to the change in the law, I found out something on the Mass Municipal page that from late December 2023 that had changes signed into law December 4th, 2023, and the paragraph says, Section 8 allows for a simple majority vote of the local legislative body, rather than a 2/3 vote, to draw down special purpose stabilization
So the
funds.
general wouldn't be that. Yeah.
A 2/3 vote is still required to establish both types of
Yes.
stabilization funds.
but the spending is easy.
Yeah, so when we use like the smart growth, I think that might have been.
Right, so that's why I'm just
That might
understanding,
provide what's
we
stuck in
want
my
to know
head.
whether it's special purpose or not, I don't know.
Okay.
But if you were saying to yourself, well, we say we want to keep reserves at least at 7%, you could entertain the idea of getting that general fund stabilization fund to about 7%. So that you know that you're safe, you know, like, and then whatever's in free
Yeah,
cash, fill
right.
it kind of separates the money.
Yeah, I mean, and
But either way, it's not gonna hurt us if it's in one bucket or another when it comes to the
Yeah, I
bond
mean,
rating.
It's primarily sort of a, for lack of a better word, psychological thing. And then you could argue it both ways of like what could be, you know, we do want to like give people an accurate view of how much free cash we have, but then even that is also confusing because so much free cash gets cycled through our operating budget and back again every year. So, I mean, it's interesting the bond rate agencies don't look at that, whatever, it's their business.
They look at both, the
Yeah,
stabilization.
no, but I mean, that they don't prefer us to keep money where it's hard to spend.
I think that they like to look and see historically how you've managed yourself and to keeping your reserves high and paying off your debt quickly.
Yeah.
Those are things that they see it consistently with you, then that makes them more comfortable.
Yeah, but I mean, it's sort of a, like, I mean, I wonder what the discussion will be like when, you know, we have, you know, 12 million in reserves, but that's not 7% anymore, or whatever. I forget exactly where I got the spreadsheet here.
Yeah, it depends what the budget grows to.
But yeah, depending on what the budget gets to, you know, if,
It's definitely a concern for sure.
yeah, no, I guess it's only about 9 million, it's being like in 2028 would be 7% of the projection, but that's still like.
Yeah, and then there's this, I'm looking at this mass.gov highly recommended financial reserves page, and they have a 5 to 7% of operating budget, but they call it a general stabilization fund.
Right.
So it's like it's just semantics, but that 5 to 7% is the number.
Right, we have a general stabilization fund. It's one of these rows in the.
I think if
cash
you wanted
spreadsheet.
to move it, I think it has to
Yeah.
be moved by town meeting. So
Yes,
you'd have
yeah,
to,
it would be-
you'd have to,
This would be,
Yeah.
an April town meeting
Yeah.
thing if we wanted to do something about it. So we could propose something for that if
Yeah.
And they say 5 to 7% of free cash too, so there's all these this is where all the guidance comes from, I'll have to bookmark this page.
Yeah. There it is, I mean, I,
So is it 10 to 14%? And
Well, they're saying like this page on mass.gov, which is highly recommended financial reserves from 2022. And it gives recommended amounts, so it says like free cash and it says, use it for one-time things. Further, we recommend defining a target balance for free cash certification as a percentage of the general fund budget, such as 5 to 7%, and striving to keep a targeted year-end unappropriated free cash balance to fund the next certification. And but it also says that under general stabilization funds, a community's target balance varies by budget experience. A recommended goal is in the 5 to 7%. And there's special purpose stabilization funds, which doesn't give a range, but there's good explanations there.
One of the things you had asked at one of the last meetings that I was thinking about is what makes us different, like why does this model work for us? And I think a piece of it that kind of we don't really think about is that we spend 5% of our budget on capital and debt, and we don't borrow for all of the capital. A lot of towns will actually use their free cash on a one-time capital thing. Every year, we're spending about $3 million on capital within our budget without borrowing. And so that's not typical in every community. The way our budget is built and the way that we do it is a little bit different, like the accommodated costs coming off the top. I don't think that's typical. Just the way we do it is just a little bit different. And they tell you one-time uses like capital is the kind of thing you should be able to use it for. And we're spending $3 million on capital and it's part of our operating budget. You know what I mean? So if you're looking at what we're using for free cash, you could say, well, some of that's really going towards those one-time uses, the capital. So I was thinking about that when you said it. Why does this work for us?
Yeah.
Because it's been working for us, but I don't know. And I was thinking some of the differences I've seen, that's the accommodated cost coming off the top. And part of that accommodated cost is a 5% commitment to debt and capital. And we borrow for very short term. We try and keep it going and we've got very little debt. And the capital is kind of committed to every year. We don't say, oh, okay, we're gonna tight budget, we'll do less. We're pretty committed to that 5%. So I think that's why it works for us a little bit, why it makes it a little different and it works.
It's different from like I've gotten interested in history lately, partly because wearing my other hat on the CPA study committee, of reading old FinCom notes and stuff from 20 years ago when Reading was considering the CPA and we didn't have a stabilization fund, or some guy named Chuck Robinson was on the finance committee and made a motion to create a stabilization fund.
Well, back then they were paying for like renovations to barrows out of the operating.
They were
budget.
doing.
They were doing
It's very
things
dangerous to do
It
too
was-
much.
it was-
with second
yeah,
levy, but then
Yeah,
we're doing
so it's very
big capital project.
different, but then it's interesting, we could go.
Because it crowds out everything else.
Yeah.
That's why I think we have the FinCom policy that says if it's over $4 million or something, we really should be entertaining a debt exclusion.
So if we did both projects, like roughly like 85 million, right? In debt, what would that look
Well, I
like?
think sounded like,
More-
if we're talking about both projects, I
was
think we're
like
looking
adding
at.
up 160
I was thinking
million.
it was like, I was thinking that, I mean, a lot of
Oh,
people
the
were saying,
50%.
yeah.
So we got like
Well,
85 for the
she was
school.
saying, I thought that
We
would
don't
be
get
like
reimbursement
98%.
on the
I thought it was about
Bill.
98 million would be our
Oh,
share.
yeah, that's right,
Yes,
that's
and
right.
then maybe
Yeah,
another
so
30 million,
100
Chris,
plus
you're talking like
27.
128.
Yep,
Yeah.
And that's, before more, hopefully not more inflation, but.
So I have not priced out the senior center because I've not heard any.
Right,
actual official
BHA was
number.
giving us like 3 estimates that all came out the same, 27 million or so a year ago, almost a year ago. And
As you pointed out, they were proposing to build the same building in 3 different places. The same building would have cost roughly.
Right,
the same
that's,
in
I
3
guess,
different
that's why I asked, I said, how come we didn't get
Yeah.
different options like they did with Killam? It just, to me, it made
You-
sense. Even a smaller gym, they want a gym, but does it have to be that size? I don't know.
It doesn't, I get it. I get it. You want to see them get what.
I know, it's
They
just, I
definitely
wanna
don't
see them
have
get
a big-
something. I fear the community is
Yeah.
facing a lot of.
So the danger that, Marion, is
They-
you could always wish your gym was a little smaller. But once you build it, you can't wish it's a little big.
No,
again.
I know,
So,
I know. I guess
Yeah.
it's just what,
I
do
think
people, what do
you're-
people want to take on?
Yeah, I
At
mean,
the
I think
time,
you are
it's
better.
hard for
I mean,
for people to decide what can they
You're
afford.
right, it is
Yeah,
a,
but you run the risk of not getting anything at all.
right, it's,
But I
it's a-
think-
it's a
I think-
gamble and it may or may not be a smart one, but it is
But I
a
think if
gamble.
it's 27 to go smaller, it's probably still
Well, the
22.
difference is
so
with the senior
it's not-
center, I keep calling it senior center, if it gets rejected, they can get another bite at the apple. They don't get 2 bites, we kill them. Like, I mean, it'll be the exact same bite and they'll try to like really pretty please pass this, but
I
they
think the
can't
Killam
change it.
has the advantage of grant funding.
Right.
And, you know,
Yeah.
senior center knowing that, hey, if you don't take this now, we could be
Yeah.
paying this whole amount
Right,
ourselves.
Right,
But,
yeah.
but senior center, they could come back with a revised design, if it's smaller or
Exactly.
something else if the
Right.
community
Right.
doesn't like it.
So they do.
So I
that.
guess why not grab for
Right,
everything, try for everything first?
Yes.
And if it fails, you revise
If
it.
the only
Come back
cost
with
is the additional election and the more redesign money, which is not trivial.
Yeah, but I mean, we certainly heard a pretty unanimous support for this strategy of taking a really big swing first, so. You know,
So, so it's just quickly, like 137 million, if you have to finance that, like, I'm trying to figure out what that would look like, so.
Well,
10%
that's
of
it.
debt. Yeah, with the debt exclusion.
What do you mean,
Assume-
in terms of what the debt payment would be?
Yeah.
I couldn't do that off the top of my head.
No,
I
just
only
trying
have
to
the
guess
numbers
as a
for.
percentage of our
I mean,
budget,
when we were
keep a
look-
5%.
We got that estimate a long time ago under Fidel, and I remember I had that, and it was like October 2022 FinCom meeting, we had this table.
no, I.
Yeah, I know.
And there were,
I know
and there
what
were
it-
costs.
I know what the
I'm
killing
gonna
would
go
be,
find it.
but I don't know
Right, 'cause
anything
I
about the
remember, I
senior
always
center.
would keep.
So recently I had them run the numbers, a large
This is what
number.
you're looking for.
At the
Yeah.
138 with like a 30%
It was-
MSBA, so it
I
was like a
find it
98
in my email.
million dollar. And it looked like it would be, if I did a 30-year borrowing, average household about somewhere in that $750 increased range. And that's not counting the fact that these debt exclusions the last couple of years are falling off, that $300, that average $300 people are saving. So but you don't really notice that savings because your taxes are going up every year. So
the property values.
it
going
just goes up a
10%
little bit
year.
less. Yeah, so, it looked like somewhere in that range of, 7 to 750. But also in a time when we're starting to see those debt exclusions.
Yeah, I
fall
don't know
off.
what the interest rates were associated with
Yeah,
that
that's-
versus the
I mean,
interest rates
We
now.
were assuming a 5% coupon because,
Yeah.
we'll get a premium and all of that, but that's what we have to assume.
From a bond rating perspective, that's not too extreme, though, right? If we only have 5%.
Well, I've already checked, it should be fine, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I mean, the one that's, that Marion was referring to, estimated an impact of 88 cents this was for an
For 1,000 valuation.
$84 million share, which is less than we're now projecting. It was 88 cents per $1,000 of home value. So,
Well, say a $900,000 home, right? Average home, that's what we're getting at.
yeah. I mean,
$792.
I think the
Yeah.
average home, when I did it recently, was 870 or
Yeah, it's
something.
in
Right,
the
so
same
by the
It was
time
around
it grows,
900,000.
Yeah.
And it was saying it would be, it was very close numbers though, per thousand, I think 89, I forget what it was exactly, but about $750 for the average house.
That's a lot.
So that's a lot, so you're really looking at, when you add the two together,
Like 1,000.
That's a
a thousand.
lot.
1,000, and that's before CPA.
That's good.
But that's just guessing at this point. Plus, the one benefit we do have is that interest rates are going down and we haven't been borrowed yet, so we might luck out and actually get lower interest rates than what we're projecting.
By the time borrowing goes out.
Yeah.
The last few weeks, rates have gone up.
I know, I mean, we're not
Yeah.
borrowing right now, so.
Everything can change a week from now too, after.
That's right.
Like, we won't even know the results.
But we, all of the estimates we've done are- all of our estimates have been on worst case scenario, assuming a five.
That's a relief, though, actually. I didn't-
Maybe it'll
You'll
be
have
more,
more buildings coming in.
maybe, yeah,
Property values going up.
based on the pace elsewhere,
New
but I won't
growth
get
will
into
be
that
way
debate either.
bigger.
Because
Because
even
you
though we
have a
get
lot of
lower rates,
buildings
we get a
coming up.
premium, we end up having to pay the interest at the
It's-
higher rate.
Everything is normal.
Because they have upfront, like they
Yeah.
pay you the premium and then you have to pay the 5%, so we just budget the 5%.
Interesting.
Or 4%, whatever the going rate is, so.
All right.
When we
So-
do the debt exclusion for this, for Killam, we have to pass the debt exclusion for the full amount, right? And then tell the voters, but by the way, we're gonna get 40 million. 30 million.
And we probably won't borrow the full amount.
Right,
It's a-
right.
So it's a combination, but
the
it's so
vote
that,
has to be for that
it's so
big
that
scary
things can
number.
keep moving, you know, yeah, exactly. It is gonna be the big scary number, absolutely. You have to do the whole.
I remember for the library, we did the same thing. It was 19 million, we
Yeah.
were supposed to get 5 or 6 back, and
Mhm.
we had to approve the bigger number.
Well, then the library, there was two things because there were
Yeah.
unexpected costs.
It's a whole nother
And
story.
the MSB has been really good about just getting us our money. It's like putting the reimbursements, the money's coming in very fast, which isn't the case what it used to be years ago when we did an MSBA thing. So if you're doing regular reimbursements, their money's coming in very regular. So they're looking at your invoices, this is allowable, this isn't allowable, and then they give their share. So you're getting the money as things are moving along, where it used to be you'd be waiting till the end of the project and borrowing the whole project.
Yeah.
And then they would be giving you your money back later. I feel like that's a better way of doing things, the way they're doing it now.
So are we getting money back from the 2.2 million
Mhm.
in design?
Yeah, and the last Killam meeting,
So
or
when
2
I
meetings
asked-
ago, I saw the whole meeting was invoices. I remember seeing all the invoices come.
So Sharon, will you not spend the 2.2 then?
So when I asked DOR what to do with the $2.2 million, like, and because MSBA money was coming in, I'm like, what do I do with this MSBA money? Does it go in the general fund? And she's like, I would put it in a capital project fund for the feasibility study for the 2.2. Put the MSBA funding in there, and then when you're ready to go for the project, you'll vote that whatever remains towards the project so that you borrow less. So that, you know, because we committed to 2.2 to the feasibility study and they're giving us, they're saying that number was high to begin with, and then they're, you know, MSBA is helping us
Mhm.
and paying as we go. So that money could grow a little bit more than we think, you know, so it's just sitting there, so.
So of the 2.2, how much did they think they're gonna get reimbursed?
So the 2.2 is more than we'll need, I think, for the feasibility study is what I understood. I
I'd
don't
say
know.
it's 2 million.
There's really two questions. There's a question of how much of the 2.2 do we spend, and then how much of that gets reimbursed? Is that the?
So I think they're at
two
like
questions.
48 point something % of whatever it cost us to do the feasibility study is what
So,
they're
right.
doing.
So
So
we get-
we've already
we get-
received.
We get 100% of what we don't spend, and we get
So I think we
48% of
received
what we do
already
spend.
about 264,000 has already been received from the MSBA. So we're, and then I had another $305,000 reimbursement going to them. So, and they'll pay whatever is eligible from that. So probably about 40 something, 48%, whatever it is. So the money coming in, I don't think any of us were thinking about, oh, MSBA is going to kick in towards that $2.2 million feasibility study. I wasn't thinking that we'd see that money till later, but the way they do it now is they're actually giving it to you as you're spending, as you're spending it and as you're putting through reimbursements. As frequently as you put through reimbursements, they determine if these are eligible costs and they send what's due from them. Which is better because you're not borrowing the whole amount.
Right, exactly.
There was a time when you would borrow the whole amount and then they pay towards the debt service and all that stuff for you, but now it's better this way, I think.
Right. So theoretically, we're talking about future meeting agendas. I actually, well, we ended up talking about the reserve policy, which, thank you for that, actually. It
Was that on
was
the
useful to me.
agenda?
It was, well, it was policies it just said
Yeah,
policies. I
that
didn't
was-
specify
as we were
reserve
getting it,
policy.
I was thinking, okay, this was all on the agenda, right? But yeah.
Yes, yeah, no, our reserve policy
Everything
is
is
one of our
all- this
policies.
has been one big policy discussion.
Well, that was that, and then we've also, trust me, I, in the back of my head, I'm like, is this on the agenda? Is
Well,
this on the
plus
agenda?
also, we were
It's on the
talking
agenda.
about the things that we talked about
As long-
earlier
exactly,
too.
as
Killing
long
it,
as
so
we're
it's
talking
still
about,
there.
as long as we're talking about Killam and Recal, we're talking about things on tonight's agenda, so.
Well, you did say finance policy, so that
And
stabilization
we
thing
are-
was part of that
Exactly.
policy. that we're looking
Exactly.
to
So I'm thinking about it too, don't worry. All right. Is there anything else that we should be thinking about for future agendas? All right, then I think we have meeting minutes to approve, and then I think we are done for the evening. So
Move to approve the finance committee meetings for October 9th.
Second. Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, Mark. Was there any discussion? I did not have any edits. Did anyone? Around, thank you for presenting them, Jackie, but it sounds like this is going to be a quick
Yeah.
Nothing, all right.
Good job on the
Hearing,
minutes.
hearing no discussion, let's vote. Emily?
Yep.
Joe?
Yes.
John?
Yep.
Henry?
I'm gonna abstain because I wasn't present, so.
Very well, Henry abstains. Mark?
Yes.
Jeffrey?
Yes.
Marianne?
Yes.
And Joe Carnahan, yes.
I'm gonna do this one.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. We gotta get to in person. We missed it. I understand.
It has been a time in our house. I appreciate everybody's patience with me. Yes,
Emily? we're
yes.
back to adjourn. Joe?
Adjourn.
John? Yes. Henry?
Yes.
Yes. Jeff? Marianne? Yes.
Yes.
And Joe Carnahan, thank you all. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, I know, I'm sure the library wants to get close too.
Oh, yeah.